On today's show, we'll discuss the football band dynamic, Southern and Texas Southern matchup, and a boombox part 2, and read more of your comments from past episodes. All this and more coming up next on Luke's Band Report. Good evening, afternoon, or whenever you're watching me right now. My name is Jay Luke, the owner and operator of the Passion Is Network and the host of Talk That Talk. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Real Talk That Talk. You can also pick up any of your merchandise at www.realtalkthattalk.com. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. First thing, right off the bat, we have Southern and Texas Southern. I don't know if I want to be that guy, but I'm gonna be that guy. Southern versus baby Southern. Was I wrong for saying that? Maybe not. I don't know. Could have been, but whatever. The whole point is we had Southern and Texas Southern going head to head, and I'm gonna be honest, I haven't watched the halftime show yet, so I'm gonna actually get to that as soon as I get finished with that. So I'm probably gonna put my thoughts about the halftime show in the comments after all of this stuff is over. But first of all, second of all, one more time, last week, Norfolk State's homecoming, so shout out to Norfolk State. This is my last day wearing Norfolk State stuff, so I'm just letting you know, this is going to be the absolute last day I'm wearing Norfolk State stuff. Anyway, so moving forward, so we have Southern and Texas Southern. I was able to catch the zero quarter and the fifth, and again, I didn't get a chance to take or to watch the halftime show yet. And what I will say about the zero quarter is I really wasn't impressed by either program from the zero quarter. And I mean, I don't know if I want to say rightfully so, but what I'll say is the fact that there was a lot of DJing going on when Texas Southern was playing. And as a person who was an assistant band director at Prairie View and been at Mumford and been through that process, I kind of understand what it's like to be into that space. I don't know if I really agree with the whole DJing thing and trying to be shady like that. I mean, my thing is, we already have an issue as it is when it comes to DJing and marching band and HBCU band programs anyway. So to add that dynamic to the process, I don't know if that was cool. But when we're talking about band, when we're talking about, what they were doing, I really wasn't impressed. A lot of rap songs, which I expect to happen in the zero quarter. As I've said before, I think that the zero quarter is the time for you to really unleash all of your rap daddies. And it's cool for me. I didn't have a big problem with the fact that, they did. But I did have a problem with the fact of the approach of it. I just felt like a lot of it was not as clean as it could have been. And I mean, obviously a lot of overplaying in a lot of areas. So that's kind of where I am with the zero quarter. But I will say what I got to say about the fifth quarter. In the fifth quarter, 40 something minutes worth of music. First of all, that is a lot of music that had happened in a fifth quarter. But yeah, 40 something minutes worth of music in the fifth quarter. And I'm going to be very honest, I was really impressed with song selection. Let me be very clear. I was impressed with song selection. For the first time, I ain't going to say for the first time, but what I'll say is in this particular battle for a long time, we have actually heard full band songs, no rap daddies right off the top. I'm talking about The Glow, Ready or Not, Carry On My Wayward Son. Like all of these, I was excited to hear. And it was just many more. And I mean, obviously they ended up going to their rap daddies towards the end of that. With Southern closing out the show, which, I mean, it was what it was. But I was really, really thoroughly impressed with the selection as it pertains to music. So I'm definitely going to give you all a one. I was really, really impressed with that. So Kudos to you guys. Now let's talk about musicality and all that kind of stuff, because I got to get into that part about it, right? So I'm really gonna say something here, and some may agree, some may not agree. It is what it is. I already know y'all. I don't know how y'all rock, but go ahead and put it in the comments, man. What do y'all think so far, or what do you all think about who was the best or the better band out of the Texas Southern and Southern uh, battle, I guess you want to say? Who do you think came out on top? For me, when it comes to the fifth, and again, I haven't seen the halftime yet, so I'm gonna put my thoughts on the halftime in the comments after I get finished with this. But again, for me, I really thought that Southern was the better program of that night. Here's the reason why. Again, I thought that the song selections on both sides were great. I don't think one band played a song that to me topped another song in the sense of selection. But what I will say is approach and characteristic sound is the thing that really put Southern a little bit more over the top than Texas Southern. There were a lot of areas where Texas Southern, I felt like, when it comes to knowing the music and knowing your parts and so on and so forth, I felt like they were a little bit more spotty than Southern. And so there were a lot of areas where I felt like some of the trumpets could have been stronger. Some of the euphoniums could have been stronger on some of the melodic lines that they were playing, some of the counter melodies that they were playing. And so for that reason alone, is the reason why I kind of gave the nod a little bit more to Southern than I did for Texas Southern. Now, here's the other piece about that, right? The other piece about that is, really, if you really want to be honest, both groups had start stop problems, meaning articulation as far as attacks and releases, right? You got to commit. From section to section, you got to commit to your attack and your release, right? If you're going to take the breath and move the air on one, then you got to take the breath and move the air on one. If you're going to release on four, if you're going to release on one, if you're going to release on three, then everybody has to commit. There should not be a euphonium or a mellophone or a trumpet that is releasing at a different time than everybody else. Now, I'm not talking about screamers, and this only pertains to trumpets. When I say this, I'm not talking about screamers. When I say I'm not talking about screamers, I mean, if you're going to scream, obviously give that little millisecond, maybe a second afterward. But after that, don't be trying to hold it on for like 3, 4, 5 seconds, right? Get a millisecond, give it a little baby second or whatever, and then you just let it go and that be what it is, right? So that part I don't have a problem with. I do have a problem with is when there is a euphonium section or a mellophone section that's playing something in the section, has a line as a section, melodic line, a counter melody or whatever. Some people don't commit to the release. Some people don't commit to the attack. There are a lot of people who are coming in with the attacks very early, and then the releases are very late. And that goes section by section. I'm not going to necessarily speak for the woodwind section, because in a lot of these situations, you really don't hear them. Except for and maybe somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Texas Southern's woodwind section was a little bit bigger than Southern's woodwind section, but I could be wrong. I got to go back and look at that again. But that's my perception on that. Now, the other part about that is intonation, balance, and blend. I mean, we already know what tends to happen. If you're in a situation like this and you tend to overblow, 9 times out of 10, you're going to blow maybe a little sharp. Now, there were a couple of places in the trumpet section where a couple of people were a little bit flat and below the pitch. When you're really getting these chords together, remember, we're talking about chord qualities and pitch tendencies. And when you're trying to overplay those, depending on whatever the chord quality is, you can either overshoot it or underplay it. And so we need to be mindful of that. So when you guys are in, and this is no shot to the directors at any program. I'm very excited for the music selection that you guys did. Very excited for the students. I think that, you guys put on a good showing for both programs, a respectable showing for both programs. But the only thing that I would say is when you guys are going through these songs and you're putting together these killer chords and all this kind of stuff, just make sure that you explain to the students about chord qualities and pitch tendencies and understanding where, the third needs to be, so on and so forth. If, depending on whatever it is that you're playing, your root, your third, your fifth, your seventh, your ninth, if you're going to be having it. So just have that conversation with the students and make sure that they understand what they should be listening for as they're playing, not just to belt belt out whatever note, but understanding that you put that chord there for a reason. If you're using the chords, that are from the actual song, dope. If you're using some substitution chords, that's dope too. But understand that if you're going to use substitutions or chords from the actual song, that chord is there for a reason. And whatever the reason is, you have to make sure that they understand the quality of that chord and the nature of that chord. Other than that, though, I would definitely say, again, kudos to both programs. I am super glad, again, of the song selection. I thought the song selection was great. I don't know if I put it in one of my top fifths of this year. I'm still in the Alabama A&M and Jackson category as far as one of my best fifths of the year. But I would give this maybe like a second. I would give it a second. One of the things that, and I know I'm harping back on an older episode here, but one of the things that I've come to really truly understand too is I feel like still the season is still dry. And this is, no shot to them, but I just feel like the season is still dry. And because of with the season being dry, this did not excite me as much as Alabama and Jackson. But I don't know, maybe it's just my mood right now. I don't know. It could be. But yeah, I would definitely say when it comes to fifth, this is probably the second for me in the line of fifths. But I will say also kudos to Alabama A&M and Alabama State. I did watch their field shows and their fifths. So kudos to all performing programs and, the shows and the performances that you all have coming up this week. All right, moving on. We got to have a real big conversation, y'all. We really got to have a real big conversation. So this past week, again, shout out to Norfolk State, homecoming time, absolutely 100%. But there was something very disturbing that I found out that had happened at homecoming during the game, or I think it was before the game. And so one of the things that happened, and no, I was not at homecoming. I actually had to DJ an event that weekend. But one of the things that ended up happening that I found out, and matter of fact, I found out in the middle of me DJing the event, Morgan State's football team was fighting Spartan guards from Norfolk State's band. Here's the problem with that. Here's another problem with that. The undergraduate football team was fighting not only undergraduate students, but alumni Spartan guards. See, that's a piece that you don't recognize, right? So when I was watching this, when it came across my screen, the first thing I said was, bro, that's alumni. These are grown adults. Some of them are up in age, like 30s, 40s, late 40s, early 50s maybe, and y'all fighting them. Nah, that wasn't even the tip of the iceberg for me. So like I, as a Legion member, I was already upset at the fact that this was going down, right? But then I'm looking on my timeline and I see Cedar Hill goes out to the Southern and Texas Southern game to do a performance. Shout out to Brother Walker and Cedar Hill, by the way. And the Texas Southern football team, as they're coming on the field, just runs right through them as they're trying to come on the field. And I'm gonna be honest, as a HBCU band member, this isn't the first encounter that we've had with football team. I know that we've had, when I was an undergrad, my freshman year, we had an encounter with our football team in the CAF. And I've talked to many of people who have had run-ins and encounters with football teams. Look, let me tell you this. Let's state some facts first. The first fact, the marching band is the biggest cheering section for the football team. That is a fact. We are not there to battle. Technically, we are not there to battle each other. That is something that we as HBCUs and as a culture have decided to do over time. But the truth of the matter is, just like the cheerleading squad, our job is to be there to support the football team. That's our job. That is our fundamental job. Okay? That is true. Here is another truth, though. There is no HBCU football without a band. You pull Southern, you pull Jackson, you pull Norfolk, you pull FAM, you pull Alabama State, you pull all of these band programs from these schools, and I guarantee you, those stadiums will not be the same way. The people who I saw staying around for the fifth after the Alabama State and Alabama A&M game and the Texas Southern and Southern game, they weren't there for the football. They were there for band. Boombox Classic. Now, it's a huge rivalry, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people there for the band. And we're going to talk about Boombox in a minute. Because I'm not going to try to jump into sections, right? So those are the two things that we know are true. Here's my problem. At what point are we going to say, you know what, coaches, we got to do a better job of reeling in our people? Because here's the thing, and I'm not going to necessarily attack coaches, but I want to say this. There is a level of aggression that takes place as football players. We get that, right? As a band director, one of the things that I never could understand as a band director is there is a level, because of what we do and how we do it from an HBCU perspective, right? There is a level of aggression that we have also as band members, right? We have created a lane to where the battle is big. And we have said it, and we've lived this life for quite some time, right? In a lot of cases, other than being hit, we condition ourselves just as hard as a football team. Now, we obviously don't have the availability of the weight room, right? But the conditioning is strenuous as, band members. But at what point, coaches, are we going to say, hey, these are students just like y'all. They're here to support y'all. And we've got to do a better job of appreciating both groups. Because the truth of the matter is, our job is to appreciate the football team. That's literally our job. So we don't have no beef with the football team. But I know, and I've experienced this as a university director. I'm not going to say what game it was. But a lot of times when a team is losing, that's when they want to take it out on the band. And here's the other part about it. The football team never tries to come and get the band as a whole. They always try to catch a few of them slipping. And that's one of my biggest problems too, but I digress. Point of the matter is, we've got to get a hold of this particular situation, because this is not an isolated incident. This is not the first time that the band and football team have gone at it, whether it's at the same school or whether it's at a different school. Truth of the matter is, we've got to get an understanding and a respect and a mutual respect for every program. Because here's the thing. If Norfolk, I just go back to the Morgan thing. If Morgan has a respect for Morgan State's band, if Morgan football team has a respect for Morgan State's band, then why isn't that same respect translated to another school? Because you know what the expectation is at Morgan State's band. You obviously can't walk through their band. So why would you try to walk through somebody else's band? And I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there, right? There has to be mutual respect across the board. And there has to be understanding, like, all right, yo, this the band. We're not going to mess with them. They students just like we are. And I think that's the other problem. Y'all all students. At what point did the university become the hood? I don't even know how you thug in undergrad. That's still, I used to talk to Rick about that a long time. How do you thug in undergrad? I don't know. I haven't figured that one out yet. Like I'm at a institution of higher learning trying to portray like I'm still in the trap. You were blessed to make it to this particular point. You lead a trap at the trap. That's just my perspective. Maybe I'm off on that. But again, we have to do better at communicating the mutual respect between the two programs. My final thing that I'm going to say in this is, bro, if your team suck, that ain't no reason to take it out of the band. I mean, you just need to work harder. Most football teams, not all, but most football teams that try to beef with the band are teams that are not doing too well. I've seen in my history. I could be wrong. Somebody tell me in the comment section if I'm wrong. But most teams that ain't doing too well, losing, that's usually the ones that be beefing with the football team. Y'all tell me. Again, I'm open to the possibility that I'm absolutely wrong. So anyway, before we get to the next or the last topic, man, we got a real quick promo from Blow the Whistle. And welcome back to Luke's Band Report. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up by getting to our last topic and also go ahead and get into some of the comments that you guys left on the last episode or episodes past. So here we go. Boombox 2? Part 2? What? So I'm going to say this, but I'm not going to say it in the way that you guys think I'm going to say it. Who asked for this? I'm just curious. Who asked for this? Like, well, this is a thing that people were like really, really pushing towards because of the fact that Boombox was so early and it just didn't feel like Boombox? Or is this the residual or the continuation of the one that they did, what was it, a year or so ago? I think it was a year or two ago. I don't know, but I think for me, I was just really like, why? I'm hoping that maybe this is the reason, or this is the way to combat the Boombox classic that we had early, or here's my theory when I saw this. This is a way to, add more excitement to the dry season. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not going to say that this is just going to be crank up the whole time. I really don't believe that it is. After seeing what Jackson was able to do with Alabama A&M, seeing what Southern was able to do with Texas Southern, playing a more eclectic book, having more full songs in there, I don't even think that it's going to be a full crank up like that. So I really, in my personal opinion, don't feel like it's going to be that. And so I don't look at it in that negative light. I'm just wondering what was the reason or the cause or the push for this. And again, that's why I'm asking, like, who asked for it. So again, I'm not asking like, I'm asking like who really was the one who spearheaded it and what was the rationale and the reason behind wanting to do it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. And again, I think if I'm not mistaken, this is supposed to be in Mumford. So we'll see what this entails. And here we go. Here's my biggest question. And you already know I'm going to ask this question. Is this going to consist of a halftime? I don't know if you want to call me old in that fact of wanting to see halftime. I just want to see a marching band march and march well. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't play in the stands. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is, if you're going to call yourself the marching band, then I would hope that you would march, not just march in, but do a drill and do it well. And I think that should be part of the, I guess you want to say, scoring of who's the better program. Now we're not going to get on scoring and stuff because you already know how I feel about adjudication. But again, I'm just curious to see, what are the thoughts, or what is the process of how they're going to do this boombox part 2. And we kind of knew that it was, they were hinting at it when we saw the pictures of the boombox, but now that it's official, I just have the question of where was the desire to put this on. So that's where I'm at with that. All right, so now let's go ahead and get to some of y'all comments. All right, so first comment that we have comes from Brother Moore. Brother Moore is a true supporter of the Passioneers Network, and we just want to say thank you to him. This comment goes back to the episode when we were talking about dancers. And I'm thinking, and it looks like the one where we're talking about HBCUs and also Southern and Bethune's meeting. So here we go. As I listen to the comments, it sounds as though no one is doing anything productive in the HBCU band world outside of Norfolk State. I appreciate Norfolk for how it has maintained its identity over the decades, and that includes its field presentation, excuse me, and its sound. But I seriously don't believe all other bands are trash and aren't adding any value to today's band culture. My biggest concern is there are far fewer bands these days that have their own identity, whether I'm a fan of their style or not. Some bands don't look as good on the field. Some bands don't sound as good, but I'm not to the point of viewing all bands as trash. Thank you, Brother Moore, for your comment. I'm going to say this. And please correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I don't know if he's referring to me or the people directly in the comments. I know that for me, I have made it my goal to not try to call any program trash in this particular setting. And the reason why I'm saying that is because of the fact that I feel like, well, I'm not even going to say I feel like these are students. And because they're students, they're undergrad students, they're putting in work, the directors are putting in work, and we're not just going to diminish them by calling them trash. Now, if anybody else does that, that's on them. I'm not going to get into that. But what I will say is, if I have said it, I retract and redact that statement, because, again, I try not to call them trash. And I'll tell you all this, too. I know it seems like it may seem as though I'm biased, which I don't think that I'm biased, but I can tell you this. I try not to talk about Norfolk State on here, on any of the channels, unless it's truly part of the conversation. Like, think about it. I believe that one of the best sounding bands is Bethune. So, and while the Legion does sound good, I'm not saying that the Legion doesn't sound good. I think the Legion sounds great, but I do believe that from quality of sound, the tax releases, that standpoint alone, again, I believe that Bethune sounds great. Now, with that being said, too, again, I try not to talk about Norfolk State on here too often because of the fact that I don't want you all to feel like there is a bias in that particular room or that particular realm. When we talk about, when I had the conversation about Tennessee State and Norfolk, I felt like that was the better fifth that week. And obviously people disagree with me, and that's cool. I understand. You are more than welcome. But I mean, if Norfolk State's in the conversation, then I'm going to have the conversation about them. But let's also remember that I'm also the person who said that I didn't think that Norfolk was going to do that great from the stand perspective, because we historically have not been a great stands band, not until around 2009. And then even after that, we had to lose and then rebuild again. So again, I don't know if Brother Moore, you were referring to me or people in the stand, or not people in the stands, but people in the comments. But I hope I answered that to the best of your ability. This one comes from Brother Cinema. I think it's Cinema. And this one is talking about coming from the episode, we have a trumpet problem. Trumpet and saxophone players have lead parts from the time they begin playing in bands, so they are accustomed to being the center of attention. I say this because I notice it's normally a trumpet player holding over a note to be heard in a singular form. This is pure selfishness, as they are ruining the entire performance for every other hard-working member. For the most part, I kind of agree with that. I think that sometimes alto saxophones would probably have a lot of counter melodies depending on, whatever the music is, but they would probably have a lot of counter melodies with mellophone. Tenor saxophones would tend to have more lines with the euphoniums. And then they can probably step out there maybe now and again and probably have some lead parts like that, depending on the size of your program, what you got going on. You may use them as for your chords to be able to thicken up the sound just a little bit. So no, I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I'm also, as a trumpet player, I'm not necessarily a fan of the extensive Hangover. I am a fan of the Hangover because I was a screamer. But seeing as I think that sometimes the Hangover has gotten exceptionally out of hand, I think that, yes, there is a major issue with the Hangover, and it does take away from what a lot of the band programs are doing, specifically if you have a really, really, really good song and approach to the song, and it was just well, and then all of a sudden you have this one trumpet that hangs over for like 3 or 4 seconds. It's like, why would you do that? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh my gosh. So no, I don't disagree with that at all. Last one for today. This is from Askinson29. And this one is talking about the butt twirl from last week's episode. I have an issue when young girls, high school squads, are allowed to emulate those moves. A lot of those moves are sexual in nature. People like to say it's just dancing, it's art. Yeah, but what kind of art are we promoting? Some of it's just not appropriate. As a high school director, I had to see routines before I let them hit the streets. I didn't mind being a prude, but my main mission was protecting my young ladies, even when they didn't realize they needed protection. I don't give an F what others thought or said. At the end of the day, it started and stopped with me. Thank you for your comment, brother. I don't know if you're a male or female, but Askinson29. Well, I will say this. Yes, as a director, everything that happens with a dancer should go with you. But I think what ends up happening a lot nowadays as directors, because they have coaches, we put them in the hands of the coaches, and then we say, we trust your decision. Boom. And we kind of let it ride like that. Now, I'm not saying that every director does that, but I'm saying that may be what's happening nowadays. And so I think that's probably why a lot of things are slipping through the cracks. And very similar to what I said last time. Yes, these high school programs are emulating what these university programs are doing. A lot of these high school programs are getting some of these younger university kids or students who have graduated or probably didn't graduate, but were asked to be a coach for these lines. And then some of these directors or coaches for these lines, specifically in high school, didn't march at a university. They marched at their high school. They liked the style. They may, be somebody who joined one of those bucking teams or dance classes or whatever, just really like dance. And then they ended up being a coach. That's highly possible too. And so because of that, their moral compass may not be as big. I don't know. That's just another speculation. But here's one of the things that you said that I truly believe in. People like to say it's just dancing. It's an art. Yeah, but what kind of art are we promoting? Look, I said this on my Facebook page, and I'm going to say it right here, right? The truth of the matter is, just because it's a social norm does not mean it's a good thing. We have to remember that. We get into this idea that because it's a social norm, it's the right thing. No. Just because it's a social norm doesn't make it right. Remember, bad habits can become normal habits. Just because you do something doesn't make it right. So we have to look at our moral compasses at the end of the day. There is a level of morality that I think that we have lost in life, in this world, as we're talking. And I think that because we lost that level of morality, there's too much gray area and there's no black and white. So no, I definitely agree with you and what you're saying right here, in the fact that just because it's dancing or because you call it an art, that doesn't necessarily make it right. We have to be mindful of the quote unquote art that we're letting out, because again, too much gray area and too much black and white. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you guys for joining us. I'm so used to saying us because of Talk That Talk, but no, I appreciate you guys for joining me. Remember, you go ahead and click that like button, subscribe, share, get this information out. Also, if you're watching this on any time, whether you're watching me at work or whether you're at the gym or anything like that, you can go ahead and click that like button as well. I appreciate you guys for listening. We have another episode of Blow the Whistle coming up. Also, Crystal's going to be doing her car confessions, and Talk That Talk will be going on this Wednesday. We're working on trying to get together a Prairie View episode. We had a Norfolk episode last week for Norfolk's homecoming, and this week we're working on getting a Prairie View episode together. So we hope we can pull this one off. We hope to see you there, and I will see you guys next week on Luke's Band Report.